It's going. I didn't know it
There
started
you go.
early. All right. Cool.
Cool.
Well, we're back here to chat again. So what was the topic you had? I know you had some stuff on your mind that you wanted to talk
Yeah,
about. And
I had been um looking at to talk about servitors, um, just as a concept in general. I thought that's something you might be interested in. Um, it goes by a lot of different names. Some people call them thought forms or tulpas is a word you might have heard before. Um,
I think, can you
but
refresh me on what that is? Because I think when I talked to Robert Peter, I thought he said I thought he said he was creating a servitor. Or something.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah,
So how does that work? Because you create them through thought forms?
essentially it's like um I've been trying to think of a good way to describe it, quite frankly. And it's like when you get a song really, really stuck in your head, it's almost like you don't have control over that thought, or like that thought has kind of taken on a life of its own where it just keeps popping up out of your control. Um, so I would say that's the same kind of energy as a servitor, just like unbound and uncontrolled, whereas a servitor is that kind of like autonomous thought, but
Gotcha.
it is, you give it a purpose, you point it in a direction, you give it a job to do, and it either fulfills that task and then fizzles out if that's how you designed it, or it could be something longer term where you keep it around for a specific purpose for a long time, like a meditation aid or a like something to help you remember to take care of certain things. Um,
Oh,
or even like to go after your enemies and make their lives miserable.
how would that work though? Because you create it. I mean, how do you create it through like meditation or just kind of reciting it, like you said, a song or something? It's a
That could be one way of doing it. So it requires you to go into a, I would say like trance state,
okay.
to empower it. And it's the same kind of state that any sort of magic practice involves, where you're tapping outside of yourself into something bigger than yourself. And
But at the same
um,
time, you're kind of creating it, right? Is that the
yeah,
function? Yeah.
and so the sensation to me is very much like it's less like you're um creating something from nothing and more like taking, like, are you familiar with like a sigil or what a sigil is?
I think so. Wait, it's yeah,
It's
because it's an amulet is the one used for protection, right? And the sigil is like one used more for like
Yeah, like a
spell
sigil would
casting or
have like
something.
a, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Um, well, the same kind of way that you would charge a sigil,
Okay.
it's like you're building up energy or focus or whatever you want to call it. And to me, a servitor, it's less you're like building it from scratch and more like you're carving it out of this like block of energy that you've pulled up.
That's interesting. Okay. So how, excuse my dumb question, how does one
No, no, no.
charge a sigil actually? Because I'm not familiar with that practice.
There are books and and essays on all sorts of different ways to do that.
Okay.
And like, I think there's probably thousands of different ways to do it. And I think doing it all depends on the person and what works best for them. Um,
And sigils would kind of work. I mean, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, they would still tap into some sort of type of energy, right? Is
yeah,
that kind of the
definitely.
idea? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. because you have to, it's like the way, or at least my favorite explanation is there's many explanations and like many things along these lines, any and or all of them could be true. Um, but the idea is that you're taking a desire or a goal or something, you write it out and you sigilize it. So you make a symbol that to you somehow represents the statement that you put down.
Okay.
Some people will do this by like striking out repeating letters and vowels and like kind of combining the letters that are left over.
Heard of that.
Um, yeah, I think I could be totally wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure Austin Osman Spare was the one that kind of popularized that technique. Um, he's kind of a famous
I've heard
chaos
that name
magician.
before. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when you make the symbol, the goal is to imprint the symbol into your subconscious. Um,
Okay.
or you could say like the super conscious that connects everybody. And by doing that, you're putting it out there into the universe that you want this thing to happen. Um, and a lot of people, or at least the way I, originally learned slash was taught, said that you, once you make that symbol, you have to forget what it means in your conscious mind.
That's tough. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like it's
No,
tough.
that's kind of the hard part about it is that and um
Do you remember the sigil though? You just forget what it means? Is that kind of
yeah, the
okay?
goal is that you remember the symbol, but you forget the meaning behind it is one way of doing it.
It's really
Um, yeah, because then you like you that's one way of using a sigil is that you make it and then you put it somewhere like on the front of your fridge, somewhere where you're gonna see it like every single day,
yeah,
and eventually it fades into the background to the point where it's not you don't consciously notice it anymore. And at that point, it's fully imprinted into your subconscious. And then people will like burn it or throw it away or tear it up or whatever they do with it after that. Um, Personally, when I do sigils, I actually use the burning of the sigil as like a way to trigger forgetting about it
okay.
and activating it at the same time. Um, at least that's the goal.
Just kind of
Not to
cool
say,
practice and running. It's fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Um, I have a couple tricks that I use to make it a little bit more fun. If you get metallic paint pens,
Okay.
um, the metal flakes in the paint will color the flame when you burn the sigil.
Well,
And yeah,
that's
it's
really
just
cool.
like I've found so many little things like that that just like it makes it feel more magical when you
Yeah,
light the piece of paper and it burns green all of a sudden or blue.
yeah, that's
Like,
cool. And of course, I mean, and that stuff works on, like you said, on your consciousness and your subconscious.
yeah,
So
exactly. Well, it's just like the same reason I keep the pens that I use for doing that. I don't just like put them in the drawer with all the other writing utensils. They have their own special box. It's literally labeled magic pens
yeah,
that I have to go into anytime I want to do a sigil. I just use that one set of pens.
that's cool. So are sigils always usually written down like that? For some reason in my mind, I thought they were like you could always like put them on a necklace or something too. Or is that just all like amulets? Am I getting them
I mean,
confused or something?
yeah, talismans,
Talisman.
amulets,
Okay.
they're all uh I don't know if there's like a difference between them besides like
Okay.
uh what people make the specific one for.
Yeah.
Like, I've worn well, I guess talisman, like I used to have a talisman that was like a pouch with stuff in it, whereas like an amulet would be like, worn on the end of a necklace.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I guess it would be different in that sense.
Okay. And is it, I'm trying to think of, sorry, I'm just trying to categorize it in my head. Maybe isn't
Yeah.
smartest thing to do. But sigils, are they, I guess I'm just kind of wondering the right way to think about them because I'm pretty ignorant with stuff like that. But the talisman and amulets are more for protection. At least that's kind of to my understanding. They kind of guard you from stuff. But um, or so I'm wondering even with like crystals, like some of them seem like kind of more guarding energies when you have crystals, and then other ones seem more like active energies. And are sigils more like active energies or something like that? Okay.
Well, I would say with all of the above could be all of the above.
Okay.
Like very much so. Like you could easily make a sigil for protection. You
Okay,
could
gotcha.
just as much you could definitely make an amulet for attracting wealth
Okay,
that
okay,
you would then wear and that would
okay.
like its job would be to attract wealth to you while you're wearing it.
So
Or
sigils are more just the practice of, it is kind of the practice of writing down words and
Mhm.
then, okay, and then letting that accumulate energy and then kind of, I guess, releasing it once it's, is that correct, basically? Oh, oh no, it might come back. Okay, sorry, I think I'm back.
You're good. Yep.
Sometimes it glitches for a second. I don't know if
Yeah.
you, so yeah, so sigils is kind of the practice of just like writing, um, like writing stuff down or maybe reciting or something and kind of building an energy and then just kind of letting it be released. Is that
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
okay? Okay.
I
And so
would say so.
servitors are kind of the same thing. Is that what?
Could be.
Okay.
I would say the ones that I've had the most success with are the ones that you build to stick around long term. Um,
Okay. Okay.
there's a
Could you
like
give
it
me
has to
examples of
be.
that? Or I
So
mean,
like
you don't have to do person. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Oh no, I can I can't hear you for now for some reason. I'm not able to hear you. I don't know what's going on.
you're
Hmm.
coming through fine on my
Oh,
end.
okay. I can hear you now. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
It could just be my internet. Sorry. Sometimes every once in a while it just will glitch for a minute. But
It also says my internet connection's unstable.
yeah,
I just got that pop up too. So
yeah. We'll
let me
keep rolling.
try um actually just rotating around real quick. That might put me a good couple feet closer to the router.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Cool.
All right.
All right.
See if that works.
Yeah. It looks a
So
little clearer now. Um, but
so
what
it's
was I talking about?
examples of like a servitor, like long term.
Oh yeah, yeah. So basically my life can get really busy and I also kind of struggle with depression a little bit. And sometimes it'll be hard to be creative. Even though I feel the desire to do stuff that's a bit more creative than just sit there and passively play video games. Um, it just doesn't click for me for whatever reason. And so I have a servitor that is designed to help me collect my creative energy and essentially store it until I'm ready to, I have a better outlet for it in some
Okay.
way.
Okay.
Um,
If you describe that too much, does it kind of lose its power? If you were to tell me like what that is.
I don't think so. It's because it's literally like, you know, it's powered off of attention in some ways. Like I intention intentionally kind of feed it, quote unquote, and then when it's time for me to be creative, whether I want to do a writing project or like, sometimes I'll do different artsy kind of things, or sometimes even just building something I consider creative kind of scratches that itch. Um, I'll like call on it and offer up some water and maybe some incense, depending on how big of a thing I'm trying to accomplish. And it kind of like repays the spirit that I've made for what it's giving back to me. So there's no loss of energy on its part. Um, and it kind of maintains itself that way. Plus,
So,
there's also like a physical anchor for it that I made, um,
mhm,
that you would say it kind of lives in, or at least is tied to. Um, but it
so when you offer up water to it, what does that mean? You just like will you pour out some water or
I have a cup that I use for offerings,
oh
and
okay.
I just kind of use intention and
Okay.
say basically like, hey, this water that I'm pouring is for you.
Okay.
Please help me be creative or do this project or whatnot. Um, I mean, and that's really like the key um, to any sort of magical practice is that I think, you have to overcome the idea that we're taught early on in like preschool that imagination isn't real.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to like, you don't have to disagree with that because it is important to learn those lessons, but you do kind of have to expand what you think real is.
Yeah.
Direction, it starts to once again include imagination, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And I really think imagination, you're it's the same reason like when I make a an oil concoction or something, like when I'm putting the ingredients together before I start praying over them, I like literally take the time to tell the ingredients what they're for, why I'm using them in this mixture, or what the end result is supposed to be once they're all put together.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's a really important step because, like, you're, at least for me, it's communicating what the purpose is, and that, kind of imaginative intent is like that's how you shape willpower. That's like
That's good.
that's how you know if I'm saying I'm carving a servitor out of energy, it's like that's the tools that's doing the carving.
That's for sorry, yeah, that's I was trying to remember what you said there. That like shapes willpower. The imagination shapes willpower. That's really good. Um,
Yeah.
so trying to think of what to ask here. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's fascinating idea. So when you're with the servitor of like creativity, it seems like the phrase you're using is carving, kind of carving out an energy or something like that. I guess in the imaginal
Hmm.
realm, is that how you're doing that kind of like, or something
Yeah,
like in the
that's what I
imaginal?
would say.
And
It's like
it's,
you
do you have like a
slowly
something you recite every day, like just kind of like
um
how does that work that you're kind of building up this creative energy that you can tap into later through an offering
yeah,
or something?
so I would definitely say that's another trick to doing stuff like this is that if building up and releasing a whole lot all at once is difficult, it's a perfectly acceptable like workaround to do it a little bit of it at a time at a very repetitive time. So like a specific hour each day, go back to it, or like a specific day each week, or a specific day each month even, if you're depending on how big of a project you're working on, or how long term, how specific the needs for it are, like
Yeah,
um would be why you would go back at certain times and like work on it more. But the end result, it's like every time that you're working on it gets compressed down into one thing, um to where instead of having to build up and release something huge all at once, you can slowly
it's
work
like,
into it.
gotcha. It kind of reminds me, I don't know why, it kind of it's just reminding me of prayer, like normal, like how people would,
Hmm.
or like how, because there are prayers that I say every day that almost seem like just repetitive to the point that I don't even think about them. Or almost like saying Hail Marys or something too, like the way you just
Yeah.
repeat Hail Marys over and over and over. It's like you're kind of building up this I mean kind of the repetition of it too almost kind of puts you into a trance state and it kind of builds up this energy around that. But when you're talking about servitors, it seems like it's kind of almost like you're creating a spirit or something like that, or an angel or something that later you can give an offering to.
That is like
Oh, hold on.
descriptive word for it is artificial spirit.
Artificial spirit. Okay.
Yeah. Because it kind of acts like working with an ancestor or a spirit, but you can have it tailored very much to exactly what you're looking for.
Interesting. You know, it's my mind. The other thing my mind keeps thinking of, like the way you're describing it, almost makes me think of like creating a sourdough starter or something. Like it's something you just kind of feed
Yeah.
a little bit every day, and then
Hmm.
later you can tap into it, and that, yeah, that makes, I don't know, that having those natural, I think, parallels makes me think, why not? Because you take, I mean, with a sourdough starter, you basically are just taking, as far as I know, just high grain flour and water, and you let it
Yeah.
ferment. And so, like, if you were tapping into imaginal realm, you can take this thing and that thing, and you just kind of are constantly feeding it little by little every day and just letting it work and do its thing. So, like you said, later you can call upon it or say, "Hey, I need bread now. I need my creative whatever."
Well, and the best part is doing it this way. Anything that you have, you've created completely on your own. And if there's one rule to anything like this, is that you can always get rid of anything that you made. You don't have to be like afraid of something getting out of control, or um, like making something that you can't handle, because by definition you made it. Um,
Interesting.
and
Have you never heard of any of it getting out of control for people?
it's it's one of those things where like frankly, I don't know of like a lot of people messing around with this kind of stuff like I do. Like I certainly have a
Yeah,
few friends online and like am part of a couple communities, but even a lot of them are uh I don't know. I'm kind of branching off into unique territory here in some ways. Um
yeah. I don't
or
hear
at
about
least
servitors very
unique.
much, but yeah,
Well, it's something that's just really kind of clicked for me. There's a lot of, I mean, it's kind of like trying out musical instruments. You can try a whole bunch of different ones. I think I kind of shopped through meditation and magical techniques similarly and kind of landed on this. One of the primary deities that I work with and worship is Hephaestus, the god of the forge from
interesting.
Greek mythology. And his whole aspect of building things and putting them together just the right way so that they fulfill a certain purpose, it really kind of goes hand in hand with this work. And I think that's part of it.
That's really cool. I love the Greek myths. They're so good.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you mentioned earlier too, though, creating a servitor to act on someone else. Uh, does that get out of hand, or what? I mean, what does that even look like? Like, because you're creating it, like you're carving out an energy
Yeah.
or a force of energy, and then uh having that act on, yeah, someone else. Like, how does that even happen? Is it just
So I've never made one with that intent. Um, but I certainly know of a few examples. My favorite of which being someone who's a punk rock musician, made a servitor into one of the songs that their band plays, and every time the band plays this particular song live, that's what powers this thing to go and just absolutely wreck this other person's life. And yeah, and it's not like I know these people. I'm not
yeah,
claiming like, oh, this is my cousin's friend said this actually happened, man.
yeah.
But it's uh it's claimed to be very effective that within just a few live performances, they noticed their abuser's life had taken a drastic turn for the worse.
Oh, that's rough. I would be so worried about karma with stuff like that, though. But
Well, that's it's very important that you embrace the left and the right hand path when you're working with this kind of stuff, I believe. Um, the right hand path being that helps and grows, and the left hand path being, that which deceives and cuts away. I think they're both like it it really is balance between the two that is required, and it it's really easy to fool yourself and think that like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know I can be the hand of karma here. And karma will definitely let you know when you're wrong, but you also find out real quick when you're right. And when you there are certain times when the job of someone that can do magic is to even the scale.
get to
Whether it's for
abuse it.
them or someone else.
Oh,
Um, At least that's I definitely see that as like a primary purpose of it. And I think historically that's like a primary purpose of magic. That's what it has been used by people who are historically marginalized and living at the edges of society.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, I could see that. I think I just personally, I have a fear when it gets into the idea of it, like evening the scale or like weights and measures, because that feels to me like yeah, I'm gonna even the scale, but like give it 10 years and that thing's still gonna come back around and like try to, I don't know. Just personally, I have weird uh like falling into that, or not falling into that, but like yeah, because I don't know, just the balance of things. It seems like it's so always so like just fragile in doing that, that it would be very hard to like, play that song one too many times. And now it's like, oh man,
yeah. Well,
I tip
and I
that.
mean that's the thing. Like that's you don't make something like that without the intent of it being as harsh as possible. Like it's there, you don't make something like that without the intent of either.
Give it a second. Come back. Oh, oh, I think
Uh,
it's back now.
there we go.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I
Yeah,
was just saying that there's certain acts of magic like that that you go into, and um there is no taking it too far at that point. Um Not saying that that's necessarily the right thing to do
yeah,
or the right way to go about it, but like to do that kind of act, you have to really believe it, right or
Yeah.
wrong.
Just commit yourself to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense. Oh. So what
but
is
yeah, it's like, I mean,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, finish.
no, I was just gonna say like that very conundrum is what like makes me seek balance so much
Yeah.
and made me get into Eastern mysticism kind of before Western mysticism because the Western stuff, when you get into it at first, is very much like be selfish, be a dick. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of the wrong way to read it. But as a beginner or an outsider, that's kind of what it looks like it's saying. And I think a lot of people just stop right there, and you can find a lot of examples of that in certain parts of the communities. But the um, more Eastern mysticism is, well, I mean, like even just yin yang, um, the the black and white droplet with the
Yeah.
circle of black and white in between.
Mhm.
Um, that's like every good action has a seed of evil in it, and every evil action has a seed of good in it. Like it's
Mm.
um when you start to see things that way, it becomes easier to just weigh the scales for balance and not in one direction or the other. But I mean, it takes a lot of work. It's not easy. I mean, that's why 99% of the magic that I do is all focused on myself, is because not, I'm a lot more comfortable fucking with my own scales
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
feeling like I can go out there and say, I mean, even someone that um, there's a couple people that I've really thought about doing some big time spells for. Um, but it's like one of them especially that's like they have kids and like I don't want to make this person homeless. Like their kids don't deserve,
Yeah.
like maybe they deserve a better parent. It's like I can't magic that into existence. But then you get to like, well, maybe I could make a servitor to help them be a better person somehow.
Yeah.
Um, or just like, I don't know, pray for that. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be magical. It could just be a prayer.
Yeah. I would feel yeah. That sounds good to me. So what I was gonna ask what like I guess you said you've been drawn more towards this work lately. What has like drawn you towards it and like kind of I guess made you want to uh get into creating servitors more, emphasizing that aspect of your work.
Just because I found that it worked.
Okay.
In like I have a very, when it comes to like a sixth sense or just things that are not picked up with your regular senses,
Mhm.
um, I have what they call like felt sense. Whereas like I don't see anything or hear things that aren't there, but like I will get hairs standing up on like specific body parts or just like feel very strange sensations throughout my body that usually correlate with things going on around me in one way or another. Um, and it's taken me a long time to like kind of decode what that means, more or less, or like just to kind of not just become more sensitive to it, but also like um just kind of learn what my body's been telling me. And that's kind of how I interact with 95% of spirituality, is through like a felt sense. Um, but when I started working with servitors, right away, it's like, um, maybe another way to describe it with some of them is like when writers talk about having a character live in their head. Have you ever heard anyone talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. For sure.
Um, like the guy that wrote American Psycho said that um what's his name lived in his head for a while and would just talk about killing people in the street or something like that. Um, yeah,
That's right.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, but the servitor can kind of be like that where um you have conversations in your head all the time. Sometimes it's like with people that are real, and the only difference is sometimes I have conversations in my head with things that aren't real or that I made up.
Yeah.
And it's like tuning a sounding board to talk about a certain kind of thing, whether it's like I have one that kind of helps me with maintaining my finances, one that helps me with maintaining my health, and one that helps me with maintaining energy and protection. And sometimes I'll just get like little pings from them.
Mm.
They're like, "Hey, do you really need that second coffee or whatever that you're buying?" Or
Mm.
um, do you, why don't you take the dog for a walk or something like that? And
Yeah.
it's very much like not, I mean, I don't know, maybe it sounds mundane, but it, the thoughts have a certain flavor to them that mark them as not just things popping up for me.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I think I know what you mean. Like they're, uh, yeah.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
hard to
There's a
describe.
different. Yeah. There's a different style. It's to thoughts. I think if people like really pause, I don't want to say pause. I mean, maybe it takes practice too, but you can kind of sense different. Sometimes there's thoughts that seem like they kind of bubble up within you. Then there's other ones that seem kind of just totally out of left field and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's other
yep,
ones that are probably more like you're talking about, like with servitors, it sounds to me like it would almost be like a weird sort of remembrance or something because you've kind of built up a,
yep,
yeah, an energy. And so then like you're saying, when you think to get a second coffee, then all of a sudden this thought is just like, it's like, it's not necessarily bubbling up or coming from within you, but it's like, yeah, the energy is kind of telling you, or the prayers you've offered or something kind of come back around
yeah.
and
It's like
serve you or something.
whatever feedback loop that you've made, however you want to think about it. I mean, you know,
It's interesting.
I have no problem with someone that wants to look at it as a purely psychological phenomenon that like I'm spending time repetitively making this thing in my subconscious, and so it pops up from my subconscious at times when it matters.
Well,
Like,
I'm like I almost brought this up, but I don't want to like I feel like people could dismiss it or like it gets or I think I'm being dismissed. But it's kind of like it's almost kind of like creating an imaginary friend or something.
yeah,
Like that's what
absolutely.
I think that sounds more fun to me because then you get like you have the energy almost like personified, and then you have like an imaginary friend who helps you be creative, and it's like this is my yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well,
Yeah,
that's I think why the creativity one is like objectively my favorite is because that's the one that I've had the most things come up that are just like I would have never thought of that. I would have never thought of that in a
that's
million years.
that's really
But this thing helped me process the information or brought new ideas to me in ways that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
that's really interesting. Yeah, that's really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, the whole concept seems very broad to me. Like there's just a lot of different ways you could do it, or a lot of different servitors you could make, a lot of different ways to make them, like just kind of, but I mean, it seems very useful because it seems like, I mean, like you mentioned before, it's kind of a certain way of using your intention and attention to
Yeah.
let something kind of germinate and ferment that you can go back and, or that will assist you later when you, in the time that you need it.
There's
Um,
another um hold on, I'm just looking something up real quick. Um, there's a guy, Jason Miller,
Hmm,
who has a bunch of different kind of like Magic 101 type books.
okay.
Um, but there's one that I would definitely recommend called Protection and Reversal Magic, a Witch's Defense Manual. Um, it sounds super cheesy, I know, but it has some really, I mean, that's where I got a lot of inspiration from on starting this process. And um I would definitely say a lot of the rest of it came from working just directly with Hephaestus and kind of being taught through experience, like what works, what doesn't work. Um, and because I think more than anything, like, yeah, I think working with a quote unquote God of the Forge puts you in kind of a unique situation where you're already in this imaginal state when you're working with a deity.
Hmm.
And Hephaestus, by his nature, is a deity that's working with energies by shaping things and creating things all the time. And I think just to put those two things together has kind of made me maybe a little bit better at working with different energies and like putting things together. Um, being around Hephaestus really puts you in a mood to want to build things.
Yeah, yeah. Really like the connection you're bringing in with Hephaestus. That's um, I don't know. I like that a lot. I like what you said too about Hephaestus being working with the deity, and then he's also one that works with different energies to craft and create things. Because it takes a second because you hear the stories and the God of the
Yeah,
Forge, and it takes a second even for my mind to kind of shift out of the material realm because we have like material things to parallel the spiritual realm. But if he's a deity, he's
right,
obviously a spirit, so he's not working with like hammer and iron or whatever. It's like maybe the spirit of iron or the energy of iron or something
right.
like that. But it's like you kind of
But
have
it's
to
still
break into that mindset or something. Yeah. And then you're into seeing, okay, these energies are combined and create something. Yeah, that's it's really cool thinking about that.
yeah, just
Fantastic
seems to
stuff.
work together.
Yeah. So when did you start working, sir? Like you said,
Um, I want to say, well, I guess it's kind of coming up on a year now. I like dipped my toe into it in probably last November or
oh, okay.
like
Yeah.
um late October, early November. Then I had a couple other projects come up that I had to work on through the first part of this year. But then in starting around March, like just I've been in kind of like a doldrums with different projects, but it was just projects that I could work on and use that really seemed to click for me. And really the only things that were clicking for me outside of like disc golf and other hobbies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it I was kind of sort of familiar with the concept from old like horror videos that I watched a long time ago that talked about tulpas. Um, it's just like another word for servitor, more or less, but
Okay.
it's this thing basically tried to describe it was like kind of a horror concept based around like the government making servitors that were more real than they to the point that they could like strangle people and stuff. This is kind of a funny concept, but it that was kind of my introduction to it.
Yeah.
like a long time ago back in high school.
So what's the difference between a servitor and egregore? I'm not super familiar with egregores either.
Egregore is something that is like they can be created intentionally, but most of the time they're not intentionally created. Egregore is the spirit of a group of people or a place that kind of um inhabits its own personality.
So okay, sorry, I cut out a little bit. So you said it's kind of egregore is kind of this the spirit of a place that inhabits its own personality, like it
Yeah, a
emerges from
spirit or
that.
a group of people. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a spirit that emerges from like if well the one that I'm most familiar with is the egregore of the church that I went to growing up.
You said more about that. I think you mentioned this in the last one, but oh, it's back. Sorry, this is annoying. Sorry, I'm back.
Uh,
I think it
yeah,
came back. Yeah. All
there you
right.
go.
Sorry about that. So the
You're good.
egregore of your church. I think you mentioned that in the last time I talked to you a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. Um, that was basically like a fake Jesus and kind of convinced me some things, even though it wasn't the real deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. And so a servitor is more just kind of more intentional than an egregore, I guess, right?
yep,
Would be the different, I guess, or the main difference. Okay.
yeah,
Because I was thinking when you mentioned like governmental systems creating servitors, that sounds absolutely terrifying. But then
yeah,
that for some reason my mind went to egregore because I thought that was I guess I've heard more of that stuff
yeah.
happening.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Oh, yeah, this is fascinating. I've never, yeah, I didn't even thought of any of that stuff before. It's weird because I mean, I feel like what you're describing, a lot of people probably do stuff like that, just not as intentionally or imaginatively, like you're talking about. Like
Yeah.
I feel like to even to go take the step to let your imagination work a little bit more in this servitor in kind of like personify it even would almost give it more I don't want to say power, but you know what I mean? More like help you to like uh, make it, I don't want to say make it more real or something either, but I don't know if you know what I mean. But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's like it gives it more um substance.
Mhm.
It it helps it maintain its shape, so to speak.
Yeah. 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 There's a, yeah, because I mean, even like thinking in like Christian context and stuff of just like even the way prayer is treated a lot of times, then yeah, and the repetition of those things, it's just it feels very similar to something like that, just not as with the same intent, but uh, or not as
Well,
much
it's
as much not as much intention, I guess, or there might be as much, but not as it's not, you know, I don't know, not framed as a servitor or something, but
see, that's the thing that makes me distrustful of this this is maybe a weird tangent,
no,
but
it's
distrustful of masses, um like church services
yeah.
in general, is because I like that is a ritual. Like there's no other context where you're getting people to like sit down, stand up, say a prayer, sing a song, sit down, stand up, listen to the guy speak, say a prayer, sing a song. Like it's all in a specific order. Like it is absolutely ritual going on there.
Uh-huh.
And the fact is that no one involved in doing the ritual, I think, really is piloting the intent behind it.
Mhm. Gotcha.
Um, like I think it's not, I think that having the intent, um, of knowing exactly that, like, hey, this is a ritual we're doing, we want it to have this particular outcome. It's like, and um I don't know. It's like having a thunderstorm, but in the middle of a desert that isn't used to rain. It's like all the where does all that energy go? Where does like I feel like the intent vacuum gets filled by something. Um,
Maybe,
whether oh yeah, I don't know exactly what. Um, I think maybe it could be broken back off and have a little bit of an effect on each person that participates in it. I think like there's, I would bet that churches in general have pretty strong egregores. I bet mine that I grew up with wouldn't be super weird to find that if you could somehow do a study on that.
yeah, probably not. So I think the hope with at least being generous, I would think hopefully the hope
Yeah.
with most churches would be that if there is some
Yeah.
sort of egregore, it would kind of meet with, there'd still be some sort of offering to God above. So you're not really, like, if you're not steering the intent of the ship, you're hoping the intent comes from God or something like that. So there's kind of a weird sort of surrender of that, I guess, within the ritual, I would think, or I would hope that would be the case. But
Well,
then,
because
you get
even
into
like,
there are a lot of charlatans.
well, and not even the charlatans, not even saying an ill intent on anyone in the church doing the service. I mean, like, who designed it? Who put who said that the Catholic Mass is going to be done in this order, and what was their intent that has been passed down through the generations to affect billions and billions of people across the planet? Um, and you just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't looked into Catholicism. I've actually been wanting to look into Catholicism actually recently, but I haven't looked into it very much. Um, yeah, I have
Yeah.
no idea. I don't know what all the rituals are. I mean, I know there's communion and stuff like that, which I think is, yeah, the binding of a community around certain beliefs, I guess, to some degree.
Hmm.
That, yeah, like I guess supposedly come back, all the go, they trace it back to the apostles or something. I don't know. I don't know that much though, but yeah. But yeah, so even that you're saying is kind of well, I guess not necessarily creating servitors in that, but creating um egregores, or could be creating egregores, but even within churches.
Or
I guess
or
like I've
even
seen, so if it here's a question. So like in because I grew up in more charismatic circles in churches, and they'd have like a prayer and worship service or like a healing service. Would that be
hmm
creating a servitor where they're trying to like saturate the space with an energy for people to get healed? Is that like a kind of a servitor? I don't know.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, or even like to me that would almost be closer to like a sigil if you were
Um,
trying to categorize it into something like that. Um, that because it's more of like a one and done. You want this
hmm,
person to be healed, or you want this space to have healing energy, and then everyone goes their separate ways.
yeah, gotcha.
Um,
Okay. And then the servitor is, it's, yeah, like you said, it's longer, it's long lasting. It's meant to help you hopefully through long periods of
yeah,
time or through life or something. Yeah,
yeah. Or it
that's
could be
cool.
like you
Huh.
could make a servitor that was like, get me a new job. Um, and
Hmm.
then once you get the job, it's done.
Yeah.
I know one belief around servitors is that they're not artificial spirits, that when you're making a servitor, you're essentially calling out for, you're basically putting out a spirit resume, and the process of making the servitor is actually the process of allowing the right spirit that can do the job you're looking for to come to you.
Is that, do you, because you said you're more, are you, I mean, are you more inclined to believe that belief of it or the other one, the artificial
I
spirit?
think it's
It
a
could
little
be,
bit of both.
okay.
I think there's like I don't know, there's oneness energy that we all kind of have and that we're all a part of. And then there's the energy of separateness that defines who we are and what we are as separate from each other.
Yeah,
Um, and I, to me, those are like the two main kinds of energy out there in the universe. And
mhm,
there is a lot of oneness in everything, but um, sorry, it's a tricky thought.
yeah, that's yeah. Sorry.
Um, the way things get shaped is um, just at the end of the day through intention and how much oneness they have versus separateness. Um, if they're really a part of the larger cycle and the kind of plan that we're all enacting by living our lives, um, then that can be one thing where you could make a servitor that you don't really necessarily have control over, but is there to like help you on your path, so to speak.
Yeah,
Um, that would be kind of asking for trouble in some ways, but like, sometimes you need that kind of trouble in your life.
yeah, yeah. So I got another question for you too. That see, last time we talked to you, I know you were practicing tarot a lot, and you were
Hmm.
because we talked about tarot a lot. Do you incorporate that into making servitors? Because what really, I'll say this first. What really helped me was when I asked you the question of like what divination was, and you said tarot is like divination. You're reading like what's outside, and then magic is more like your magic is your will pushing out that
Going
way.
out.
And
Yeah.
yeah, divination is everything else as well pushing on you. So it's kind of I feel like it's related to the oneness, like collective
Yeah.
thing you're talking about. Do you when creating servitor, it almost seems like it's more your will pushing out. Is that right? I mean, do you incorporate tarot to like kind of see what's what the
Yeah.
universe is
And
telling you and then create a servitor from there or no?
yeah, no, absolutely. You can, which, and two, like, let's say I was making a servitor of, um, protection, let's say. I would get out tarot cards, or like one thing you could do would be to get out tarot cards that also represent protection and safety, and use those as part of like the suite of what you're using with the meditation, like with an incense or with you know, different crystals or whatnot that you feel like all tie things together for protection that you're um trying to make into this kind of consciousness of itself.
Yeah, it's interesting. Did you if I remember right too, I don't know, I could be forgetting. Did you say you were like recently looking at some sort of something to do with astrology as well?
Yes, yeah, human design. Though, I actually think we should save that for next time.
That's okay. All right.
Um,
It sounded like that would probably be a big rabbit hole to go down.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, which I do want to get into, but yeah, I'm kind of running short on time at the
Okay,
moment.
yeah. Yeah, I still gotta run the errands too. I was gonna
Hmm.
try to I would have did it beforehand, but it takes like 45 minutes just to get to town from here. So I was like, I'm glad but
Yeah,
that's it. But but yeah,
no,
I
you're
don't know. This is really interesting. I don't know. Oh yeah, I'm glad. Is there anything else like that you wanted? Because I know you said you wanted to pitch or like or bring up the idea of servitors to me, I guess, just to kind of help
yeah,
talk about
no,
it
just
more. Was there
yeah.
any other
I feel
like
like
rabbit holes you wanted to go down about it or
no, I feel like this has been really helpful for me at least. I hope it's been interesting for you.
yeah, I
Um,
mean it has been. I I'm approaching it like with no knowledge whatsoever. So I don't know if I'm
well,
like
and like honestly, I think it's just kind of cool that like I remember like probably 5, 6 years ago, I had a similar conversation with a friend that I was just like, I've vaguely heard of this thing, and they're like, all right, I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
And now I'm on the other end of that, and it's being recorded, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's
Um,
really helpful. I'm always fascinated by this stuff, like all of this stuff. I actually recently, it was this past weekend, I met up with some friends, and it kind of came up how I brought up how there's a lot of stuff in I've said this multiple times before to lots of my friends that there's in charismatic Christian practices, there's a lot of similarities to just, I mean, magical occult practices that
mhm.
are that look like the same thing. I mean, not even just similar, but almost like the exact same
Yeah.
thing. And like even when you're talking about servitors, it's like I can see where, like I said, where I feel like a lot of us are probably doing this all the time. Or even, I mean, the idea of like, we mentioned amulets and talismans and everything, and having something like right now I'm wearing a miraculous medal. It's like it's a medallion, and
Hmm.
so it's doing something. I believe it's doing
Yeah,
something, Yeah. So
definitely.
I don't know. There's so many similarities and parallels, but yeah, the idea of servitors was really I don't know, that's really fascinating. I haven't really thought about it much. I mean I like the idea a lot. Uh it seems like it would be a very beneficial tool, especially like I said, I'd still be worried about
Yeah,
the karma aspect of it if I'm using it like in a specific way. But like when you're talking about it like creating a creative energy that you could tap into to be creative later, I feel like I almost feel like that's what I mean. I feel like that stuff is unavoidable because we'll end up doing it anyway through some sort of prayer or ritual because we just have to get through life. And so like if you want to be more creative, like why wouldn't you do things to kind of create a it's an energy. I don't know. It's
well,
hard
yeah,
to talk
no,
about it. Yeah.
that is fascinating you bring that up because I was thinking about that just the other day. Like, is there really, what if there's a finite, or what if the ideas that I'm having when I'm being creative are finite themselves? And so it's literally like I say, oh, I would have never thought of that, or I would have never thought of it that way. But it's really that I just didn't spend the time thinking about it at that time because that's the only time that that idea would have come to me. And so instead, this other thing did the thinking for me when it needed to happen.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's interesting.
I don't know. There's so many different ways to think about it,
Yeah,
but
that's really interesting. You know,
um,
yeah, there's a lot of different. Gosh, another thing that just popped in my head is like praying in tongues, even like the way people do that. I've experienced that too. Like, well, I've heard people say like you pray in tongues and then you pray for like the interpretation. And it's not that you get a one-to-one interpretation necessarily all the time, but it's
yeah.
like you can pray in tongues and then it almost weirdly kind of opens up uh a mental clarity or something
Hmm.
where you can have thoughts flow a little bit freer. And then it's not like, oh, I said these syllables and then these syllables mean like these exact words. It's just more like it's weirdly kind of opening up a space or creating an energy. I
Yeah.
even people praying in tongues, a lot of them like, yeah, it's just kind of creating an energy or something like that,
The way you're talking
or a
about that
mantra.
reminds automatic writing.
You want to say more about grammatic, right?
Or automatic writing
Um,
where you put the pencil in your hand and you just let your hand do the writing rather than your mind.
that's
Yeah, you can have whole
I've
conversations with a piece of paper that way. It's kind of wild.
never even
um
heard of that. That's great.
Really, that
Yeah.
was like one of the first kind of occult things that I ever tried was automatic writing. And sometimes it's really successful, sometimes it's just gibberish, but it's always like, I don't know, it's fascinating.
That's cool. Yeah, that's interesting.
And I feel like it's one of those things that a lot of people can do even if they've never tried it before. Um if you just kind of let your hand start writing words, your hand, like so much of writing is muscle memory.
Mm,
And if you can get into the mode where you're just letting the muscle memory take over and just kind of letting your mind rest,
mm.
it's amazing what'll flow out.
Yeah, that seems super interesting. I think that's really interesting. I wonder if you could do that and write songs. That'd be crazy.
You could definitely write lyrics.
Try, try.
I,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot of lyricists that have done exactly that.
probably. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, probably. Yeah, I feel like the times when I write lyrics too, it's oh, is it frozen?
no.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I feel like there's been the times when I write lyrics is when I'm not thinking too much. When you kind of get, I mean, I feel like everybody says that too, though. You're either pulling the words from out somewhere out there, or you're kind of just
Hmm.
weirdly in this flow state and you're not even really thinking or having to think about the next thing. But I've never tried like actually kind of turning off completely my mind and just writing and seeing what pops up. That'd be really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely well, and I'm by no means an expert in it. Like if you look up, there's like techniques on how to do it and get yourself into the right kind of flow state for it and stuff.
Huh.
And there's even like there's a couple YouTube videos that I'll use for it now because I feel like it makes it easier that are almost like hypnosis videos,
Oh,
but just kind of put you into that receptive state that you need to be in.
cool.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, yeah. Well, I can let you go, I guess. I probably gotta head off
Yeah.
here in a few minutes anyway. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
I really liked this conversation. Hopefully we can do this again soon. Sorry this one was so short, but and
No, that's
glitchy.
okay.
It's kind of glitchy
Yeah.
too, but yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about it a lot though. I don't know. I like the connection with the Festus a lot and the idea of like different energies. Uh, yeah, I don't
Yeah. Well, that's when I do get into the human design stuff with you next time,
know. Mm.
um, it's one of the easiest parts to talk about it is because you and I have like half of the stuff in it exactly in common, and the other half of the stuff exactly opposite.
Oh, really?
So it's like when I looked up your chart, it was immediately really interesting.
Oh,
Um, because like where I'm real receptive and open, it says that you're very like um more closed and charging ahead and like
really?
assertive.
Oh, wow. I don't feel like that usually. I don't know.
Well, not assertive's not the right word, but like it is you're doing stuff a lot.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I do.
That
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you have the active state whereas I have the passive state, but we both have um what's called the hermit slash opportunist
That
as like our personality type.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, we should
Yeah.
definitely talk about that next time. Do you want
Yeah.
me to I mean, I guess you can, since we're recording too, you can say like if you have any links or any things you want to
Oh
promote or
yeah.
something, and I can put the links in the whatever too
Okay.
and post it. But
Yeah, no, just Treefish Tarot at Fiverr. Still doing tarot readings and I will say I branched out into tarot lessons that I'll do, like an hour long tarot lesson if someone wants to learn how to read the cards or just different ways to get in touch with intuition. Been able to do a couple of those and yeah,
sweet,
turns out I
cool,
had a knack for it. So, um,
nice,
but yeah, I'm
cool.
out there on Instagram at Treefish Tarot too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
that's it.
I'll put the links in there. And if, yeah, just, just stay in touch, man. I always love talking to you, even off the recorded calls and stuff.
Yeah, well, if
And
you
if you,
come up with any other thoughts or questions about this stuff, don't hesitate to message me.
yeah,
And yeah, we should do this again sooner.
All right, maybe I'll end the recording here if I can.
Cool.
I don't even remember how I hit it. This is embarrassing. Oh wait, here we go. Stop it.